What we can do, or as far as what we can do, is to bring ourselves to empty, to bring ourselves to that stillness. Now, by God's grace and in His mercy, there are so many paths, so many tools, so many mechanisms that we can use based on what resonates with us the most to come to this stillness, to come to this empty, to come to this silence. But when does this stillness, silence, emptiness, when does that become prayer? When does that become inquiry? When does that become contemplation? It becomes prayer only by God's action in that stillness. It becomes a contemplation in the light of the spirit, in the light of the Atma within. So our mechanism to come to that stillness is secondary to that stillness itself. So whether we use the path of prayer because that resonates the most in our heart, whether we use the path of self-inquiry, whether we use the reminder to remain open and empty, or whether we use Nisargadatta Maharaj's pointer, which his teacher gave him, is to remain with the sense I am. All these pointers or mechanisms or pathways in themselves are not the crux of the matter. The crux of the matter, like we were saying last time also, is that whether we come to the bank of the river where we wait empty of ourselves for his light to reveal to us the reality of who we are, the reality of love, the reality of his presence in our heart, the growing in our love, patience, humility, all of that is gifted from there. So when we say to God that I hand over myself to you, it is not so that we can maintain a duality. It is so that we can hand over our mind, our hearts, our entire soul to God Himself. Important point. Am I on the right path? How to tell? Is there such a thing as the right path, firstly? And if there is one, of course, I want to be on the right path. So what's the right path? The key is the sage is telling us one important thing. That our silence becomes a prayer only by his light, in his light. Our silence becomes an inquiry or a contemplation only in his light. by His will, by His action. So, in the interim, our job is to use whatever tool we have to come to that stillness, that silence. It would be a mistake to presume that a method itself does the work without needing that emptiness and that allowing of God's will to unfold in our hearts, leading to true insight and love. And that is the only way we can understand the sages. When the sages told us we must do the self-inquiry, you see? And they also said that we can't do anything, it all has to happen by grace. Are you understanding that now? What that seemed like a contradiction otherwise, because they say we must do the self-inquiry. And they also say at some other time, or maybe immediately after, saying that everything has to be done by God's grace. You see? I used to get very frustrated reading talks with Ramana, you see, because just few pages back he said, we must do. And he says, we cannot do anything. It has to be His grace. You see? So it's a little more subtle than that. And reading the sages more and more and reading the traditional ones also more, I came to the realization that we can try and do the recollection of our faculties and bring them to a stillness. We must do inquiry, prayer, whatever method we have been taught to do that. We must not do that. But the real work happens after that. And the good news is, because we are not intelligent enough to do the real work, if we wouldn't know where to start, that is why God Himself does it in our heart. So the revelation of who we are, the revelation of true love, the revelation of God's presence in our heart, all of that is work that He does. So we must do what we have to do by following the pointers, the pointings of our teacher, and knowing that it's only His grace which does the real work. But to make ourselves available, present to the presence, is something we have to do. When the boundary of me and you is gone, then we may see that everything happened only by His will. But till then, we must not shoot the sheepdog, or whatever that example is. I hope this is heard by everyone. Hope this is heard, because the mind can create a lot of confusion, lot of obstacles because of this. And my attempt is to try and show you the inner journey in a way that you cannot be confused now. Yeah. So you understood that the crux of it is not in the method itself. The method is very important, very useful, because it brings us to that holy place where God's action within our hearts can be revealed to us in the form of true insight, in the form of love, in the form of all that we need to be shown. Clear to everyone?